So let's just motivate for our session today to be of benefit to ourselves, but also to others, and particularly dedicate any merit that we create today for his swift return. Wow. Okay, so before we started, I wanted to play you this video. So Lou, if I could share the screen. There we go. So,
when you highlight often,
can you hear the
you really
sound?
learn to train your fear like a muscle. Sometimes the height isn't the scariest part. Sometimes it's the exposure, which is how much space you can perceive around you. My name is Faith Dickey, and I'm a professional slackliner. So slacklining is the umbrella term for all the different facets of walking on a flat woven band. One of these facets is highlining, which is walking a slackline high off the ground. One of the best ways to train for highlining is setting up slacklines over water. When the current is passing underneath you, you automatically start to fall that same direction, and it's almost like you're not in control of your body. And that's great practice for highlining, because in highlining, when you're dealing with all the fear and adrenaline, oftentimes it feels like you're not in control of your own body either. Chamonix is a town in the Alps of France, and it's one of the places that really drives me in highlining. What's different about highlining in the Alps is that the whole experience is more intense. Being that high off the ground, you look at the valley below and the houses are just tiny specks. They look like toys. It's unbelievable. One of the highlines that I walked recently in Chamonix was on Aiguille du Midi. And when we reached the top, it was a totally clear blue sky, and we were surrounded by peaks. But during the process of rigging, the clouds started to roll in. It was like an acid trip walking the line. I was out there in space and exposure trying to balance, and the line was swinging beneath me. Meanwhile, these huge white clouds were passing, and the line would disappear, the anchor would disappear, and then it would reappear. And there was no way to control it. I just had to hang on.
Yes!
The beauty of the mountains is awesome, and yet it is a landscape that demands focus and respect. Alpine highlining is the purest form of the sport I can think of.
So when I think of mindfulness, I often think of slackliners or tightrope walkers, because their life depends on them being focused. And as you could see, with the way she's talking, how incredibly focused she is. You can see when she's walking across that line, how much concentration there is on her face. And she also talked about having to be aware of her surroundings. So she was not only aware of being concentrated and focused on her slackline, she was also very aware about what was going on around her, but she would have probably been able to deal with all of the distractions in her mind. She would have been forced to not focus on that argument that she had with her boyfriend over breakfast just before she got, you know what I mean? All the, whatever. And so probably I would imagine that slackliners or athletes of that sort might consider not going out if they'd had some difficult emotion going on. I mean, I'm just supposing at this point, but it does seem to me that that's such a good example of needing to be mindful. So the same thing when you're walking through. Over here we have a lot of what we call poison ivy, poison oak. So in the summer it's the same color as everything else, green. And it has disastrous results if you end up with it on your body. And so we have to be very mindful when we're walking around here, because a lot of the paths are overgrown. So it's just requires, this mindfulness we need in our everyday life. The athletes, like this woman, need it to do her sport. But also we can use, can you imagine if you had that level of concentration that slackliner had in your own meditation. It's incredible mental training, what she's doing. So today we're going to talk about um, we're going to talk about mindfulness and introspection. So hang on, let me just go back. Sorry. Just wait a second. Particularly in combination with mindfulness. So, mindfulness, it kind of allows our mind to stay engaged with a familiar object without losing touch or without being distracted elsewhere. So this woman that we've just seen, she was fully engaged on that slack line and one foot in front of the other and staying balanced. And if she lost touch with those objects, if she lost touch with her concentration and was distracted elsewhere, she would have fallen, although she was tired. But the strength of the connection between our mindfulness and its objects depends on the degree of the familiarity that we have with that object. So she has strong familiarity with those objects. She's very practiced. And the strength of the associations that we've built up in relation to it. So the more familiar we are with an object, the stronger the associations, emotional or otherwise. And the better our mindfulness is able to keep that object in the foreground of our awareness for a longer duration, our concentration will deepen. So you can be mindful on anything: boyfriend, girlfriend, dinner, slacklining. But what we're talking about here is trying to be mindful in our meditation. So the implication for our practice of mindfulness is to take care in building up that familiarity and strong associations through repeatedly returning our attention to our chosen object of mindfulness. So it could be breath, for example. So much so that our attention just naturally gravitates towards it. And so this becomes effortless, this experience of mindful concentration. And it's not based on how hard we push ourselves or force our mind to conform to our wishes. So we can't push or force here. We just have to be very, very patient and very, disciplined really, because the mind is going to go everywhere. So there's another natural ability of the mind. The mind is naturally, we do have this capacity to be naturally mindful. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to remember where we lived, or how to get from A to B, or how to use a car, or how to use the public transport. So this other natural ability that our mind has is called introspection. And introspection functions a little bit like a spy, checking and monitoring how our mind and body are doing from day to day. The minute you wake up, you've already done a check. You know what's going on inside the moment you wake up. But it also gives us this capacity to see what's going on in our meditation. So it's this introspection that we have, this awareness that we have, that can alert us to our mind being distracted away from the object of mindfulness, or being overwhelmed with drowsiness or dullness. And this enables us to return our attention to the object of mindfulness and strengthen the mindfulness. So the stronger our mindfulness, the easier it is to notice such a deviation, because of the great contrast between being attentive to an object and being distracted elsewhere. This means the strength of our introspection increases in step with that of mindfulness. And this is how these two qualities mutually support one another. So does anybody have any questions about that, or anything to say about that? It makes sense though, right? Doesn't it? I mean, We all know what introspection is. In this way, they're just applying it to this particular scenario of meditation. So we're going to do now this body scan meditation. So we did it last week. And so just settle into a nice, comfortable seated position. So you might be sitting at your desk or sitting cross-legged. However, it doesn't matter. If you are sitting with your feet flat on the floor, really try and feel the sensations of the soles of the feet, the heel, the outer edge of the foot, the inner arch, the toe mound, the pinky mound, all your toe pads. Have your knees about a hip's width apart. Have your feet about a hip's width apart, if that's where they are. And align your shoulders with your hips, and as much as you can, your head with your shoulders. And imagine your spine is a string of pearls of light, and it's stretching from the base all the way up through the crown of the head and beyond. So just imagine you're lengthening your spine. Put some space in between those vertebrae. And take a nice deep breath. Now just relax the scalp, the forehead, the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the mouth, the back of the head, the back of the neck. Relax the shoulders, shoulder blades. Relax the throat and the chest and the belly and all of your limbs. And bring the mind to the breath and just notice the sensation of the air as you're inhaling and exhaling. So if any of you have done any of the Theravada meditations, depending on which ones you've done, with whom, they may have instructed you initially to place your attention at the base of the nose and notice the sensation of the air passing in and out of the nostrils. So you can try that, see if that works. So with this meditation, we're going to kind of return our attention to be in touch with our own body, and we'll be sensing the simple bodily sensations of the different parts of the body. So last week we did this exercise, and before it we did the mindfulness just using physical touch. So we were actually touching the parts of our body with our hands. And by contacting our body with mindful attention, we're facilitating the body and subsequently the mind to shift and release unnecessary tensions and mental agitation. And given time, we can help the body and mind settle into a more calm and meditative state. I also help to facilitate this with breathing. So just for a moment, before we start the main body of the meditation, what I'd like you to do is just try inhaling for 4. Pause very gently at the top of the breath, and then exhale for 4. So what I'll do is ask you to, at each part of the body that we stop at, I'm going to ask you to inhale and exhale for 4, and we'll probably do it for 3 times. So start at the crown of your head and just notice the sensations. Maybe there's a little bit of tingling, a feeling of slight pressure or warmth or coolness, or maybe nothing at all. So just bring your attention there and we'll just breathe. Now bring your awareness to your face and notice any sensations here. And just release the facial muscles like we just did at the beginning. The forehead, the eyes, the eyebrows, the temples, the nose, the cheeks, the mouth. Relax the jaw. Your temples. And you allow a feeling of softness and ease and comfort into your face. And just breathe. And just very gently invite your attention to come back to your body, to your neck and throat. So the back of the neck, the front, the throat. And just notice the sensations there. Maybe you're starting to become aware of tingling in other parts of the body. Just allow that to be there. It's just information, and then bring your awareness back to your throat and neck. And moving to your shoulders. How are your shoulders feeling today? So if you notice any uncomfortable feelings here, tension, or anywhere else in the body right now, you can just simply acknowledge these feelings for the time being. Don't feel you necessarily need to change anything. Just let it be, just for as long as you're able. Breathe. And now allow your awareness, your attention to flow down both arms at the same time. And just notice the simple sensations at your upper arms, at your elbows, to your forearms and wrist. And now arrive at both hands. We sense the sensations at the palms, the back of the hands, and in our fingers. So some of you may have your palms resting on each other or on the thighs. And so having activated all these sensations, become aware of them, can we rest both of our arms and hands on their physical support? So for some of you, it might be the thighs, could be the armrest. And just release their weight to gravity. And breathe. Or bring your awareness back to your heart center, your heart chakra. And what do you feel here? Can you feel the breath along with other sensations? Do you notice your heart beating? And as you notice your natural exhale, take this opportunity to release anything that isn't serving you right now, anything unhelpful, unwanted. Just allow that to float away with the exhale. Now bring your attention to your abdomen and rest your attention within your body at the level of your navel. Maybe you can go in a couple of inches. Imagine going in. Just your belly and just notice all the sensations there. Now finally arrive at the base of your spine and rest your attention at the tip of the coccyx bone, the tail, and the two sits bones. And feel the sensations there. And feel the weight of your pelvis and on its physical support on the cushion, and see if you can release that weight so your pelvis can rest comfortably here. And just breathe. Now allow your awareness, your attention, to flow down both legs at the same time, and notice the simple sensations at the hip joints, the quads, at both of your knees, and down to the calves, the lower part of the leg, and eventually arriving at your feet. And as we did earlier, just notice the sensations at the soles of the feet, at the top of the feet, and in our toes. And having activated all these sensations into our awareness, can we rest both legs on the ground and release their weight to gravity? So just rest your body in this posture and allow it to settle down and be comfortable here. And we'll just do this for another 5 minutes and rest your attention here with your body and your breath. And each time you exhale, just use that as an opportunity to deepen the sense of release. And just release any unhelpful, unwanted thoughts, emotions, feelings. And just release yourself deeper into your meditation, into your here and now. Everyone just relax. And so does anybody have anything you would like to share? You're all like pretty zonked out, so
I think that's the first time I've been even remotely relaxed in about 3 months. So thank you.
I'm so happy to hear that. So it was not me that did it. It was you, by the way. You're the one that was meditating. So
it was the first chance in a while.
I'm so happy to hear that. Well, these meditations are pretty relaxing if you do them properly. So, I mean, what we're doing is we're just working with the breath and the mind. It's really so simple. These Indian masters from 5,000 years ago, they just somehow knew what they were doing. Anyway, so you found it beneficial. So you guys can do this anytime. It's available to you. You don't have to do it for the 20 minutes that we just did. You can do it for 5 minutes. And that meditation, this body scan meditation, it's pretty much what we do at the beginning of all of our meditations. You know how I go through the body? It's the same thing. I just do it a lot faster. So anybody else have anything to share? Jay, yes? Your hand's up.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, I'm here. It just takes me a minute to get to that mute button over there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. Two things that happened. One of which was I felt just a very deep sense around my heart chakra. I just felt a lot of love, full stop, both coming and going.
Wow.
Yeah, inward and outward. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yes. And the other aspect is that, and I don't know if this is all part of my process, part of my maturing or what, but feeling so gently about my body and just feeling very positively toward it and nurturing toward my body. And then making, wanting to follow a good Buddhist principle, also wanting to have that out to every sentient being, that they would feel good about their bodies, because as we know, so many people don't. So yeah, that was my wish with all of that. Yeah,
oh, that's wonderful. Well done.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Mary, Tom. Mary's mute button doesn't work. Lou. Anything you want to share? Okay. I mean, the other thing too is some of our experiences are kind of private and we might not want to share them publicly, and this is being recorded. So just keep that in mind as well before you share anything. So I just want to talk about a couple of distractions. Distraction is one. Distraction is just distraction. That's why we talk about at the beginning of the meditation being aware of sounds in your environment. And then, of course, if it's not an emergency, but it's just kind of cars going past, kids walking past, the usual sounds inside your house, you can just allow those sounds to be there. So normally what happens is we hear a sound and our mind just runs off to it to investigate. That's a distraction. And then there's dullness. And dullness is a bit sneaky. It's a bit tricky because sometimes when people are in meditation and they're blissing out, actually they're in dullness. They're going to sleep. It's very, very hard to know the difference between the two. But then there's this obvious dullness of, wanting to just sleep or feeling drowsy, sometimes after lunch. Jay, yes.
Yeah, could you please say more about how to discriminate between drowsiness versus bliss, or not even bliss, but just wanting to know, like, you can kind of make the mind calm, but then and yeah, you know what I'm saying. I find that a very confusing concept. Thanks.
It's a very fine line. And they talk about it in, I think also too, you have to be at a very high level of experience in meditation possibly for that problem to arise. But I mentioned it, Geshe Namdak from the basic program in the United Kingdom, he talked about it, about if you continue down a certain track of meditation, you can actually somehow damage your intelligence. I haven't really pursued that terribly far, but I just mentioned it because it's a very, very subtle thing when you think you're doing a really good meditation, but actually you're off in la la land. And a very good meditation is being incredibly focused on the object. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't think that was really answered your question.
So let me just clarify. It's like,
no, I understand what you're talking about, but please go ahead and clarify some more.
oh, no. Clarify from what you said. It's like, if you're very, very concentrated on your object, can you go off into la la land?
That's right. Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the thing. Like if that woman who was slacklining, she can't be dull. She can't be distracted. She has to be focused. Otherwise she's going to fall.
Yeah.
You have to be like that woman with your mind while you're meditating. It's not life or death, but that I think it takes that level of concentration. And I think it's extremely blissful, but then there's this danger at that level as well, to mistake certain levels of bliss for accomplishing a certain level of meditation, but they suggest you can go beyond that bliss. Don't stop there.
Yep.
Because you'll end up in what they call I don't know, there's this one particular realm where you just kind of just sit there and meditate for the rest of your life. I don't know what that is.
You're in a cul-de-sac, so to speak.
It kind of. You can end up in, but there's further to go than just sitting around in bliss.
Yeah. I can understand.
And that is, I think, when you're at that level, also that's a very, very high level to be able to sit around in bliss. I mean, that's nothing to be sneezed at, and it's not a bad thing. But they say that you can do more than that. That's not enlightenment. You can go much, much further than that. And at that level, you can have all these kind of qualities like clairvoyance and this and that. And you get many of these qualities will start to arise very, very slowly as you go along the path. And you might start to notice that you're a little bit more sensitive to this or that, or that you knew a friend was going to call just minutes before they did, or, it just kind of, you start to become a little bit more in tune with what's going on around you. It's just kind of a slow process of increasing awareness. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm taking away is that I just need, for myself, I need to just continuously persist, to not get into some sort of illusion that things are going well. I mean, I do have enough external criteria that I would know, well, just keep going, Jay. I could talk to myself about that, right? That no matter what state I get into, that if I should be so fortunate as to get into a blissful state, knowing that they just keep persisting, keep going, that's not an end in itself. Okay, so I get that.
Yeah, it's not the goal, but I mean, and that's probably a more advanced course anyway. But if you read any of Lama Yeshe's books on meditation or on Mahamudra, you'll probably find some of those answers in there as well.
Okay. And this, I do have another related question. I'll just put it out there. I don't know if you want to address this one, which is that I have a tendency to, so I'm meditating, I have the tendency sometimes, particularly when I contemplate like emptiness and it comes up, that there's a fear reaction that I have.
Oh, that's perfect.
Good. What do I
Yeah.
do? Because the tendency, can I say, unfortunately, is to distract or to, pull back, right? Out of fear. So, yeah, I would love to know your response to that one. How does one counter that desire to distract and pull back?
It's only happened to me actually once. That tremendous fear. I was doing a Theravada meditation course and I experienced my body disappearing. And all that was left was my mind. And I was terrified. And at that stage, I had no experience in Tibetan Buddhism. I'd not heard any teachings from Lama Yeshe. And when I talked to the teachers at the course, they didn't have a clue what to tell me. But it was obviously from maybe a previous life of meditating or something, that this complete understanding of just not only the mind being there arose, and it was frightening. And then I couldn't find an answer for years. And then I heard, and actually Lama Yeshe talks about it in the Mahamudra book as well, is that when people have and I'm not saying that this is what's happening for you, but when people get a realization of this idea of emptiness, it's like they have to grasp themselves to see if they're actually still there. So you may have heard that story before. So I don't know if that's what's happening for you. And I'll get to you in a minute, Lou, or what. But I think what you should just do is anything that arises during your meditation, observe it. You're like an objective observer all the time, curious to see what's going on in the mind. It's like, oh, there's fear. I wonder what that's about. It's almost like don't make a big deal, but don't ignore it, and just allow it and then explore it and see where you go with that. And then if there are any teachers in your area that are experienced in meditation, maybe you could talk to them as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And yeah, okay, Lou.
It happened to me once.
Huh.
And I asked Venerable Rubina about it. And through email, and she said that it was because I didn't have enough merit not to be afraid. So I needed to develop more merit.
Oh, so I don't know what you said to her first though, but oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, Jay, did that answer your question as well?
Yes, and I can certainly anticipate I don't have enough merit. That's no problem.
I think we all could say that for each of us. But I honestly, I think we're all at our own place in our own path, It's nothing to compare with anybody else. It's just where you're at right now. And it's going to change every day, depending on what's going on. And, we have different conditions. The weather's changing. Right now here we're in full on autumn. I mean, of course, it doesn't happen in Australia, but it's getting colder. It's darker. We have to spend more time indoors. And, what you feel like eating changes as well. So the body is going through a little bit of change right now, and emotionally it's a bit of change, and everyone's getting geared up for Thanksgiving. So it's a time of change and holiday right now here. So I think, what am I saying? So things are going to be different every time you sit down on the cushion, because you're going to be different every time you sit down on the cushion. And I think if fear arises, just say hi to it. Welcome it.
And I think I also need to make some sort of commitment to anticipate these things happen and to not let it be an excuse to distract myself.
Yeah,
You know
like
what I'm saying? To say,
eh,
okay, that's it. I've had enough. Let's go have the chocolate cake, as Robina would say, and
yeah,
forget.
any
And
shining object will do.
yes, ma'am. And I really need to sort of firm up my commitment to not go there. So that's my task for the week and probably for the next few decades.
Well, I also think don't give yourself too hard a time. I mean, these things arise and you can just say hello to them and recognize that it's not who you really are. To start with, all these delusions, they're not really who you are. That's not the core of your being. Just due to karma and afflictions, they're there. And, you're purifying every night in our Vajrasattva meditation. So you're purifying by even just sitting down and meditating and thinking about all of these things. So it's definitely going to change. It's going to be so much different than it was 10 years ago, or however long ago you started. Anyway, I think it's a good thing to focus on. So it is a form of distraction. Yes.
Many thanks. Many thanks. Very helpful.
So this dullness is this dullness what we're talking about here is more of a loss of alertness and vividness of attention. And this, how you get kind of sleepy in those Theravada courses, when you just after lunch, particularly, it's really hard. And you can space out, you can blank out, and I've heard people snore in meditation courses. So people sleep as well. And it's just kind of like foggy, dark, and this kind of a lack of sharpness in the mind, lack of energy in the mind. So it's not clear and it's not alert and it's not really engaging the object very well. And distraction is, it's a movement of your attention away from the object of mindfulness towards sounds and thoughts and other experiences and smells of coffee. And it's the opposite. It's an excessive amount of energy in the mind that prevents your attention from kind of settling down and stabilizing on the object of mindfulness. And the most common type of distraction is this compulsive involuntary thinking. All these thoughts that are running through our mind 24/7. And it also, this kind of involuntary thinking, this kind of all these thoughts that are going through our mind that are running rampant also contribute to our stress levels. And these kind of thoughts, they kind of grab our attention and just keep it involved in matters of the past or imaginary futures. And we're imagining a scenario, and then we start getting emotional about this scenario that's not even happened or might not even be true. So, we get involved in a lot of stories that may or may not be based in fact. So these are the things and the thing is also too, it's usually a good thing when you sit down to meditate, and then what you might start to notice after a while is that it's all getting worse. The distractions are getting worse. And it's not that they're getting worse, it's just that you're noticing them more. You're becoming more aware of what's going on in the mind. But don't get depressed. I promise you, will change. But it just takes time. It's like, that image of the, at the beginning of the 9 stages. We looked at that last week. I might see if I can pull it up again. What did I do with that picture? Yeah. Let me just get that for you quickly. Here we are. Here's our mind off over there somewhere, and we're just chasing it. So this is this I love this picture. This is the stages of meditation. Gradually, slowly, mind gets under control. And then here we are ahead of the mind. And then the mind is, anyway, we can look at this a little bit later, maybe another time. But Does that give you a little bit of an idea of where we're at? And so we're all down here somewhere. We're starting out down here, 1, 2, 3. At this bottom here, it's like, hey, wait for me. And there's the mind running off, doing its own thing. But don't get depressed about all this, because it's not something to get depressed over. The fact that you're here tonight means you're trying to work on it. And then once you start to see what's going on in the mind, all these kind of crazy thoughts, Venerable Rabina calls them her roommates under the bed, you can actually do something about it. You can't do something about something that you don't know or you're not in touch with or you don't know is there. Once you start to see something, once you start to see a problem, you can actually start to address it. So, with the help of these practices like mindfulness and breathing and repeatedly, gently returning our attention just to simple breath sensations or to simple body sensations, we can just begin this process of weakening our old habits of dullness and distraction. But it takes practice like anything. We think that meditation is this kind of natural thing that we just sit down to do, but it's actually not. Okay, so we're going to do mindfulness of breathing meditation now. And we've got time for that. So what we're doing here, the natural sensations of your breath are the object of our mindfulness. And we're just going to be simply, repeatedly returning our attention to the breath sensations. So the more times we get to return our attention gracefully to the breath, stronger the connection and familiarity between mindfulness and the breath will come. So each time we notice a natural out-breath, the subtle feeling of physical release that accompanies it, we can consciously associate that with a chance to release sort of maybe body tension and mental agitation. And this way you'll build up a positive association with mindfulness and breathing. And this, then introspection can alert us to the presence of this involuntary reactive thinking or dullness of mind. And we can just remind ourselves to breathe out and allow anything that's unnecessary or unneeded or doesn't serve us just to flow away and be released. So again, just settle into your comfortable seated position. And you can, Mary's not feeling super well, so just stay there lying down, Mary. And just allow your spine to settle, to lengthen, shoulders aligned with the hips. You can just rest your hands either in the right hand nestled in the left with the thumbs touching, or you can just rest your palms on your thighs. Just allow your shoulders to relax. And just return your attention to your own body and be in touch with the simple sensations here in order to settle our body into meditation. And just notice the areas of softness and ease and relaxation with comfortable feelings. And can we welcome these feelings and allow ourselves to enjoy them while they're here? And if you feel any tension or tightness or discomfort, can we simply acknowledge these feelings for the time being? Don't feel that we necessarily need to change them for the better right away. Just let them be. And just check in with the face. Are you tensing up any of your facial muscles? Can you relax those at the forehead and around the eyes or at the jaw? And just allow softness to come to the face. And just allow this softening and relaxing to spread on its own down to the rest of your body, helping your body to settle into meditation in its own time. So among the different bodily sensations, see if you can highlight those sensations associated with breathing. Some of us will notice subtle sensations around our nostrils, where we can feel the air flow in and out of the body. It's slightly cooler as you breathe in, slightly warmer as you exhale. And others of you may notice the movement of the chest, rising and falling. Maybe you can even feel the rib cage 360 degrees, expanding, contracting with each breath. And maybe some of you feel the abdomen rising and falling. And just rest your attention on your breath, some of these breath sensations. And just allow yourself to fully experience your inhale and your exhale. Rest your attention here with the breath. Each time we notice ourselves exhaling, let's use it as an opportunity to release, releasing anything unhelpful or unwanted, just in the same way we release stale air from our lungs. If you wish, you can just gently say this word to yourself, release, in your mind each time we notice an out-breath. And this is to remind our body that it does not need to hold on to unnecessary tightness and contraction. It's also to remind our mind that it can let go of thoughts and memories and fantasy that we are constantly preoccupied by. We can also release states of dullness and drowsiness, just allowing them to float away with the out-breath. We're not forcing anything to happen or pushing things away. And when we notice our breath, our attention is distracted elsewhere or feeling drowsy, just simply invite it to come back to the breath sensations and to release on the out breath. So let's just do this for another 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, everyone, just relax. I hate to pull you out of that. I'm back. So how was that for everyone? So the amazing thing for me is that we get to this age and all of a sudden we've got some instruction about how to check out what's going on in the mind. And, like, I mean, when did everybody here start exploring what was actually going on in the mind? And also, yeah, Lou.
2 years ago.
Yeah, right. So we had like 100 years before of, 30 years, 50 years, 40 years, however old we are, of just having to deal with all this kind of junk that's in there. And then it will, when you start to do this regularly, you might start to notice a little bit more going on inside there. And it doesn't mean to say that you're getting worse or that you're having a nervous breakdown or anything. It's just good to see what's actually there. It's just all good. And some of it doesn't even come from this life. It's habits from that they say that we just bring along with us from a previous life. So I'm wondering if you could try this week, just try either the mindfulness of breathing, just what we did, or the body scan. So for those of you who are coming to Vajrasattva meditation, like we do it every night. And to think about this idea of introspection that allows us to become aware of, what it is that's affecting our body and our mind. And you can, as you're going about your everyday, try and experiment this simple exercise of attending to the out breath and reminding ourselves to release just for a few breaths at various occasions. And particularly if you're having some strong feelings, some agitation, and just see if you can de-escalate, find a way to de-escalate some reactions through mindfulness. Just try that as an experiment. So, we have a tendency to react. So rather than reacting, you could maybe just say, just release. First of all, just notice what's there, breathe out, let it go. Because very often when we react to something, it doesn't have a good result. And we just go around regretting it for a week, that email we wish we never wrote. Like that. And sometimes when we're in a state of regret, we're so convinced that what we're doing is the right thing, but it might not be necessarily. So does anyone have any thoughts about that? Is something you can manage to think about? Everyone. Jay can. Okay. Just in all of your meditations, all the different meditations you guys are doing, try and bring this idea of mindfulness and introspection and breath and release. And we might do a little bit tonight in half an hour. Tom, how was that for you? I'm interested. This is a Buddhist-based session, so I'm wondering how it landed for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely useful. And I
Good.
love that. I looked up the stages of meditation chart, and I'm gonna dig a little bit to see, because that was a lovely image.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And you do dig in. If you come back next week, tell us what you find. You can share it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
It's also in our, Annie Karen, you guys from Kopan. She talked about that a little bit, the stages of meditation, in her Lamrim book. So anyway, so I think, has anybody else got anything they'd like to share before we close? Anything in particular? No? No? Anything that was difficult? No? Okay. So let's just close. And, again, I'd just like to urge you to not get frustrated with yourself if you do feel distracted or sleepy or anything like that. Just go, okay. The Heart of Meditation class with what? Mary? Oh, okay. Thank you. So if you are having any difficulties with your own meditation, just welcome them, say hi, and then just work with it and see, it's going to fluctuate. It will change. And then after a while, you'll notice that you're able to meditate for a little bit longer without too much distraction. You might also notice in your daily life that you're not reacting quite so much to things, that you're kind of sitting back and going, rather than responding straight away, you might go, oh, let me think about that. It's always a good one. Let me think about that. Put some space between you and a reaction. Anyway. So let's just dedicate all the positive energy we've created this evening, doing these meditations together and talking a little bit about mindfulness and introspection for the benefit of all those beings, all the people of our life. For our lost Geshe-la up there in the mountains in Washington, I would just make strong prayers that he can be found well and healthy and happy. And okay, everybody, lots of love. I will see some of you in half an hour. I'm going to run off and have some dinner now, and then I'll see you soon. Okay, bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thanks,
Goodbye.
Mary.
Thank all.
Bye.